How many inches women actually want based on science? When it comes to understanding human preferences, especially in intimate relationships, science offers us a fascinating window into what truly matters to people beyond cultural myths and stereotypes. One question that often surfaces in conversations, media, and even scientific inquiries is, how many inches do women actually prefer? This question, although seemingly straightforward, is layered with psychological, biological, and social factors that shape personal preferences. First, it's essential to acknowledge the complexity of human attraction. Physical attributes are only part of an intricate puzzle that includes emotional connection, personality, communication, and mutual respect. However, since the question specifically targets physical size preferences, we'll focus on what psychological research and scientific studies reveal about this topic. Psychological studies on this matter often stem from surveys, evolutionary psychology theories, and clinical observations. One landmark study frequently cited is the research published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, where researchers conducted anonymous surveys asking women about their preferences regarding penis size. The results revealed something quite intriguing. Most women reported an average preference, often close to the average anatomical sizes reported in medical literature, rather than an extreme desire for larger sizes. Why might this be the case? One explanation lies in evolutionary psychology. The human body has evolved to optimize reproductive success, and many physical preferences are tied to cues that historically indicated health, fertility, and genetic fitness. However, when it comes to size, there are diminishing returns. Extremely large sizes may not necessarily confer additional reproductive advantages and can even be uncomfortable or impractical. This is reflected in women's responses, where comfort and compatibility often outweigh sheer size. Another critical aspect uncovered in psychological research is the distinction women make between length and girth. Multiple studies highlight that girth can play a more significant role in perceived pleasure than length alone. This is because the vaginal canal is more sensitive to circumference, and a comfortable fit can enhance sexual satisfaction. Therefore, many women's preferences lean toward a balanced size rather than extremes. Additionally, contextual factors heavily influence preferences. For example, a study published in PLOS One looked at the relationship between women's preferences and their own physical characteristics. Women with certain anatomical traits sometimes preferred sizes proportionate to their own bodies, which makes sense biologically and psychologically for comfort and compatibility. This suggests that one size fits all simply does not apply. Beyond physical dimensions, psychological comfort and communication in intimate relationships are paramount. Research consistently shows that women's satisfaction correlates strongly with emotional intimacy, trust, and sexual communication. These factors often overshadow physical attributes in long-term relationships. The science here tells us that while size can play a role, it's often secondary to the overall quality of the relationship and mutual understanding between partners. It's also worth noting the influence of media and cultural narratives on perceived preferences. Stereotypes often exaggerate the importance of size, which can create anxiety and unrealistic expectations. Psychological studies indicate that many women feel pressured by these narratives, but personally value other qualities far more. The discrepancy between cultural myths and scientific reality is a crucial insight for anyone seeking to understand human sexuality with nuance and empathy. In summary, the scientific consensus derived from various psychological studies shows that while women do have preferences regarding size, these preferences are generally moderate, emphasize comfort and compatibility, and are deeply intertwined with emotional and relational factors. The answer to how many inches do women want isn't a simple number, but a balanced approach that respects individual differences, psychological well-being, and the complexity of human intimacy. One fascinating area of study is the role of sensory perception and neurobiology in sexual satisfaction. The vaginal canal is lined with mechanoreceptors, specialized nerve endings that respond to pressure and stretch. Research shows that these receptors are most densely concentrated in the first few inches inside the vaginal opening, which helps explain why extreme length is often less critical than size, that fits comfortably and stimulates these nerve endings effectively. From a neurological standpoint, stimulation that activates these receptors without causing discomfort is key to sexual pleasure. Psychologists have also explored the phenomenon of sexual scripts, which are culturally influenced sets of expectations and beliefs about how sexual encounters should unfold. These scripts can heavily influence perceived preferences. For example, many women internalize societal messages about what is ideal or desirable, which may not always align with their true physical or emotional preferences. Studies using implicit association tests have highlighted gaps between conscious preferences and subconscious cultural conditioning, revealing the importance of separating media-driven myths from personal experience. From an evolutionary perspective, sexual selection theory offers insights into why average sizes tend to be preferred. While some hypotheses suggested that larger penis size could signal genetic fitness, more recent analyses point out that the costs of very large sizes, such as increased risk of injury or discomfort, likely balanced out any potential evolutionary advantages. This balance is a classic example of stabilizing selection, where traits that are too extreme in either direction tend to be selected against. In effect, average size becomes the optimal trait for reproductive success and partner satisfaction. Moreover, research into female anatomy variability reveals that the vaginal canal's elasticity and length vary significantly among women, with averages around 3 to 4 inches in length in an unaroused state, but capable of considerable expansion during arousal. This variability helps explain why preferences for size are not uniform. Some women might prefer a slightly longer or thicker partner, simply because it aligns better with their anatomy and comfort levels. Therefore, psychological studies emphasize that the concept of an ideal size is inherently fluid and personalized. Another important insight comes from studies on sexual satisfaction and relationship quality. Surveys conducted by sex therapists and researchers show that communication about preferences and comfort during intimacy is a stronger predictor of satisfaction than physical dimensions alone. Women report that feeling safe, understood, and respected by their partners plays a crucial role in their sexual experience. This psychological safety enhances sensitivity and pleasure, which can overshadow purely physical attributes. Interestingly, a study published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior analyzed anonymous online survey data from thousands of women worldwide. The results indicated a preference clustering around a length of approximately 5 to 6 inches and a girth of around 4.5 to 5 inches, which aligns closely with average anatomical measurements documented in medical literature. What stands out, however, is the large variance and the significant number of women who expressed satisfaction with partners outside these averages, highlighting the diversity of human preference. The psychological concept of contrast effect also plays a role in perceived size preferences. This effect occurs when prior experiences influence the perception of current stimuli. For example, women with previous partners of varying sizes may develop different reference points, which shape their preferences and satisfaction levels. This means that individual differences in past experiences heavily mediate what size is considered ideal or satisfying. Cultural factors cannot be overlooked either. Cross-cultural studies have found variations in preferences and attitudes towards size based on local norms, exposure to media, and societal attitudes about sexuality. In some cultures, the emphasis on size is less pronounced, while in others, it is exaggerated. This cultural lens further supports the psychological understanding that size preference is not just biological, but is deeply embedded in social context. Finally, it's important to recognize that sexual satisfaction is multidimensional. Factors such as emotional intimacy, foreplay, variety, mutual responsiveness, and even personal health and stress levels contribute significantly. Scientists studying human sexuality advocate a holistic approach, where physical attributes like size are just one piece of a larger, intricate puzzle. So, what's your take? Did these scientific findings surprise you, or did they confirm what you've suspected all along? How much do you think cultural influences shape our ideas about size and attraction? And for those comfortable sharing, how important is size to you personally in relationships versus other qualities? Let's get real and open a respectful, honest conversation. Share your thoughts, experiences, or questions below, because understanding human intimacy is a journey we're all on together.